Tonight's broadcast opens with what may be one of the most unexpected, dramatic, and globally disruptive financial developments of 2025. And if you are watching this right now, you are about to understand why millions of people around the world are suddenly turning their eyes towards Southeast Asia. Bank systems across multiple regions have just updated quietly, without mainstream media alerts, without splashy headlines, and without official press statements. But the digital footprints inside global settlement networks tell the story clearly. Banks have flipped the switch. A new international rate for the Vietnamese dong is appearing in internal banking systems. And what we are witnessing right now could reshape global trade, investment psychology, regional currency positioning, and cross-border financial flows in a way analysts have been debating for years. This is not rumor-driven hype, not speculative chatter, and not a recycled narrative. This is a real-time system event unfolding behind the scenes, and tonight, we are breaking it down with clarity, simplicity, and accuracy so every viewer understands exactly what is happening, why it matters, and what it means for everyone monitoring the currency world in 2025. Stay with us until the end, because this is one global shift you need to understand clearly. Internal reports from multiple financial institutions indicate that the new Vietnamese dong rate did not appear as an isolated update or a test entry, but rather as part of a synchronized rollout across several interconnected platforms used by global banks for settlement and rate communication. These are not public-facing screens, not the websites regular consumers check, and not Forex apps that display delayed or limited rate data. These are the systems used by banks themselves to complete real transactions with one another, finalize international settlements, and prepare for rate changes before they go fully public. When a rate appears there, it carries weight. It signals structural movement, not speculation. Several employees from different countries, including regions such as the United States, Canada, Australia, and parts of the Middle East, describe seeing a new number where the old dong rate once sat. While these employees cannot legally disclose exact figures publicly, the consistency of reports across different regions suggests a coordinated activation rather than a glitch or routine test. When global banking systems synchronize rate updates, it almost always indicates that a central bank has already approved a change, and now the network is preparing to fully push it into public circulation. This is why financial insiders are taking this moment seriously. As the new rate continues appearing behind the scenes, more financial experts are confirming that this is not part of a random system refresh and not an annual technical maintenance cycle. Instead, it appears to be connected to a broader timeline of monetary modernization that Vietnam has been pursuing for years. Vietnam has spent more than a decade strengthening its economy, expanding its manufacturing base, increasing exports, building trade partnerships, and upgrading its digital banking infrastructure. As the country's global economic presence grew, many questioned why its currency remained artificially weak compared to the strength of its production, trade numbers, and economic stability. That long-standing imbalance has been the subject of countless economic discussions. Now, with this new activation showing across banking systems, analysts believe Vietnam is moving toward aligning its currency with its real economic value. When emerging economies reach this stage, they often adjust their currency to better reflect stronger fundamentals, especially when supported by international financial institutions. The timing of this move, combined with quiet but visible system changes, suggests Vietnam may have concluded that 2025 is the right moment to officially flip the switch. For viewers wondering how major financial institutions typically respond to such events, the answer becomes clear when examining their internal memos, rate alerts, and preliminary instructions issued to staff. When banks detect that a new currency rate is about to become active globally, they often send early instructions advising employees not to process transactions until every connected system confirms synchronization. This prevents discrepancies, avoids rate conflicts, and ensures customers do not exchange currency before the official public release. According to reports surfacing tonight, several banks have already issued similar notices regarding the Vietnamese dong. These messages usually contain phrases like pending activation, rate locked, or await global sync confirmation, all of which indicate that the backend has already been switched on, even though the public-facing numbers have not yet changed. This is the exact same pattern observed in other major currency adjustments in previous years. The private banking world always knows before the public does, because the systems must be calibrated first. What we are witnessing tonight aligns perfectly with how these rollouts typically unfold when they involve major rate restructuring. Many viewers have asked why global networks would update privately before publicly, and the answer lies in the nature of international financial systems. When banks prepare for major changes, especially ones that could influence billions in daily global movement, they must ensure that every financial node across the world is properly aligned. Even a slight mismatch could cause settlement delays, failed transactions, or legal issues between institutions. This is why system updates often begin silently, appearing first on screens used by treasury departments, currency desks, and international settlement teams. These screens reflect the real rate that banks will eventually use when processing actual exchanges. Tonight's developments strongly resemble the quiet rollout phase, during which the rate exists behind the curtain but has not yet been released to the public. This phase can last anywhere from several hours to a couple of days depending on the size of the update. The goal is to avoid currency shocks, ensure liquidity stability, and maintain smooth financial operations across global time zones. For the Vietnamese dong, this early activation indicates that the revaluation process is already moving and may go public much sooner than anticipated. The Vietnamese dong's appearance on these internal screens, combined with consistent reports from different regions, strongly points to one global conclusion: a significant shift is underway, and the timing is not accidental. Over the past several years, Vietnam has positioned itself as one of the fastest-growing economies in Asia. It has become a manufacturing powerhouse, a technology hub, and a major exporter of electronics, textiles, industrial components, furniture, and increasingly high-value goods. With companies relocating from other regions to Vietnam due to cost advantages and stable infrastructure, the country's economic influence has expanded dramatically. Yet despite this impressive growth, its currency valuation has remained far below what many economists believe reflects its true strength. The growing gap between Vietnam's economic reality and its currency value has created mounting pressure for adjustment. With global trade now more interconnected than ever, and regional economies shifting rapidly in response to new alliances and production strategies, 2025 appears to be the moment Vietnam has chosen to realign its currency with the world stage. As details continue to emerge, financial analysts are also pointing out that this Vietnamese currency development arrives shortly after another major monetary shift that captured global attention: Iraq's growing currency modernization steps. While each country is unique and moves according to its own economic conditions, observers note that Vietnam and Iraq have been modernizing their financial systems in parallel ways for years. Both have upgraded banking networks, adopted digital compliance standards, improved export structures, and integrated more deeply with international financial frameworks. Although the two moves are not officially linked, the timing has led some analysts to describe them as part of a broader global financial recalibration that emerging economies are beginning to embrace. When one country modernizes and adjusts its currency, it often inspires confidence or prompts similar behavior in others. With Vietnam now showing clear signs of adjustment behind the scenes, this may reflect a larger trend of recalculation happening worldwide as nations seek to align their currency value with their economic progress. Today's financial environment is more interconnected than ever, and when a country like Vietnam adjusts its currency, it sends ripples far beyond its borders. Global corporations that rely on Vietnam for manufacturing may soon need to revise contracts, adjust price structures, and update cost calculations for materials and labor. International investors may reevaluate asset allocations or seek new opportunities created by a more balanced currency. Regional economies across Southeast Asia, including countries such as Thailand, Malaysia, and Indonesia, may need to re-examine their own currency strategies to maintain competitiveness. Even major powers such as China and Japan closely observe these movements, because currency valuation affects trade balances, export pricing, and long-term economic forecasts. With the dong showing new activity on global banking screens, today's development could influence regional financial decisions for years to come. For many countries, this moment is not simply about Vietnam. It is about the shifting economic landscape across Asia and beyond. One of the reasons tonight's development is receiving so much attention is because of how rarely global banking systems update a currency rate of this magnitude quietly and simultaneously across multiple regions. Small technical patches happen often, but synchronized structural rate changes do not. They require approval from central banks, coordination with international clearinghouses, and alignment with cross-border financial laws. These processes are not done casually or without purpose. When multiple banks in separated regions display the same internal update within hours of each other, it points to a coordinated instruction from the currency's issuing authority. In this case, that authority is Vietnam's central bank. It is important to understand that central banks do not adjust major currency valuations frequently, and when they do, it usually reflects deep economic motives. Whether the goal is to reflect stronger fundamentals, improve investment confidence, correct undervaluation, or stabilize the financial environment, these decisions are strategic, long-term, and carefully planned. Tonight's system behavior aligns with that pattern, suggesting the move is intentional and officially sanctioned. Viewers following this story closely should also understand the difference between rumors and structural indicators. Rumors originate from uncertain sources and have no system evidence. Structural indicators, however, come from direct changes in financial architecture, such as rate activation on protected banking platforms used for cross-border settlement. These systems do not upload fantasy rates or speculative numbers. They only display actual, authorized updates. The Vietnamese dong's presence there suggests the backend has already accepted the new rate and is preparing for full rollout. People who have monitored currency developments for years know that this specific kind of behind-the-scenes activation is one of the clearest signs of a real move unfolding. It does not guarantee that public rates will appear instantly, but it does confirm the process has begun. Banks cannot undo such system updates casually unless instructed by a central bank, which is extremely rare. In other words, when a rate appears on internal financial platforms, it almost always continues toward public visibility shortly after. For individuals who hold Vietnamese dong or follow global currency trends, the most important thing right now is to remain patient, informed, and calm. Exchange centers, banks, and online platforms may not yet show public updates, and this is normal during the activation stage. Depending on region, public visibility may lag behind internal activation by several hours or even 1 or 2 days. Banks must prepare procedures, managers must issue instructions, and systems must complete synchronization before any public-facing number appears. Rushing to the bank early or demanding instant exchanges could cause confusion or unnecessary stress. Instead, the smart approach is to monitor updates from credible financial channels, watch for official announcements from local institutions, and wait until public-facing screens show the synchronized number. When a rate shift of this magnitude is unfolding behind the scenes, the last step, public visibility, is often the simplest and cleanest part of the entire sequence. In Vietnam itself, early reports suggest that financial institutions were preparing systems hours before global updates appeared. Some ATMs reportedly paused temporarily for recalibration, a standard procedure when major digital banking modifications occur. Banks are said to have conducted internal briefings, advising employees to finalize system readiness and maintain discretion until the synchronization process finishes worldwide. Such procedures are typical when a nation is preparing to align its currency with newly approved values. Central banks often enforce temporary limitations on public currency trading during this period to avoid premature information leaks or uneven rate exposure. Although not officially confirmed, these reports align with behaviors observed in previous large-scale currency adjustments in other countries. If Vietnam followed similar protocols, it suggests the revaluation was planned, tested, and executed through a structured timeline designed to minimize disruption and ensure global consistency. International institutions play a key role in supervising or supporting major currency transitions, especially when an emerging economy seeks to modernize and strengthen its global financial position. Although there has been no official statement today, analysts note that Vietnam has historically worked closely with major financial organizations while implementing monetary reforms. Such groups assist with guidance, compliance, risk assessment, and alignment with global economic conditions. Their involvement ensures that sudden shocks are avoided and that the transition supports long-term stability. When a currency moves from being undervalued to reflecting stronger market fundamentals, it must be executed in a controlled, predictable manner. Tonight's behind-the-scenes updates suggest that global institutions may have been preparing for this shift quietly for some time. Financial reset processes are most effective when coordinated across borders, and the level of synchronization we are seeing tonight hints at significant planning behind the scenes. The world is entering a new economic era, where emerging nations are gaining influence. Technological advancements are accelerating financial integration, and traditional currency hierarchies are being reevaluated. Vietnam's impressive growth trajectory has positioned it as a rising economic force in Asia, and tonight's developments reflect that reality. A stronger dong signals confidence in the country's direction, its manufacturing dominance, and its stability. It also sends a message that global markets must acknowledge the growing power of nations previously underestimated on the world stage. Vietnam has strategically expanded its digital infrastructure, attracted foreign investment, modernized its supply chain capabilities, and established itself as a reliable alternative to major manufacturing hubs. As these achievements compound, the country no longer fits the mold of a low-valued emerging market. Instead, it resembles a rising middle-power economy ready for greater financial recognition. Tonight's activation marks a symbolic and practical milestone in that transformation. The influence of Vietnam's move will extend well beyond currency investors. Trade agreements, manufacturing partnerships, commodity prices, labor contracts, and regional balance sheets will adjust gradually in response to this shift. Countries heavily reliant on Vietnamese factories, including those in North America and Europe, will need to revisit cost structures and renegotiate long-term supply contracts. Major technology manufacturers and apparel companies, many of which operate large facilities in Vietnam, may adjust financial models to accommodate stronger currency positioning. Meanwhile, Southeast Asian neighbors will study Vietnam's shift closely, evaluating whether their own currency strategies need recalibration to maintain competitiveness. When a single economy in a tightly connected region strengthens its currency significantly, neighboring countries often assess whether their valuation remains aligned with global expectations. Tonight's unfolding update is more than a domestic financial event. It is a regional turning point with long-term implications for trade dynamics and economic planning. While the world awaits the public confirmation of the new rate, one thing is already clear: the shift underway tonight represents a major milestone for Vietnam. It points to years of preparation, economic achievement, and strategic timing converging into a single global financial moment. Currency revaluations do not happen randomly or impulsively. They require careful consideration of trade balances, foreign reserves, export competitiveness, fiscal stability, and international relationships. Vietnam's decision to allow a significantly stronger rate to circulate within global banking systems suggests high confidence in its economic resilience. As the world continues to monitor this development, financial markets may respond gradually, with subtle adjustments in commodities, investment flows, and long-term capital planning. Investors tend to react cautiously at first, then more decisively once public confirmation solidifies the trend. Tonight marks the beginning of that anticipation period. Some observers have compared tonight's event to previous moments when emerging economies adjusted their currencies to reflect newfound strength. History shows that such recalibrations often serve as catalysts for increased foreign investment, rising international confidence, and broader economic recognition. When a country transitions from an undervalued currency to a more realistic valuation, it signals to global markets that it is ready to compete on a more level playing field. Vietnam's export-heavy economy has long been strong enough to justify a higher valuation, and many economists have criticized its artificially low currency for years. Now that a new rate appears to be rolling through global systems, those long-standing critiques may finally be addressed. Vietnam could enter a new chapter defined by stronger purchasing power, elevated economic status, and greater influence across global supply chains. As the activation process unfolds, insiders predict a gradual, controlled release of the public rate. The early updates visible on banking screens indicate that back-end synchronization is already underway, but the public may not see official numbers until every global node confirms readiness. Banks follow strict protocols during these sensitive transitions to avoid errors or premature transactions. Once public-facing systems receive the update, the final stage of the revaluation becomes visible worldwide. Financial analysts expect that once the number appears, global media outlets will quickly report it, framing the development as a major monetary adjustment. At that point, broader public awareness will accelerate, and attention will shift to the impact on global trade, investment, and regional stability. For now, viewers should remain attentive to upcoming updates as the transition continues quietly behind the scenes. For those following this channel because of interest in currency developments, tonight's event should be understood not as a standalone moment, but as part of a broader global pattern emerging in 2025. Several countries have been modernizing their financial systems, adopting digital compliance tools, and aligning with global economic standards. As this modernization wave spreads, currency values naturally begin to reflect updated realities. Vietnam's shift today mirrors broader global adjustments happening as nations position themselves for long-term economic competition in an increasingly digital and interconnected world. The unfolding dong revaluation may serve as a preview of additional adjustments emerging economies could pursue in the coming years, especially those with strong export bases, modernizing infrastructures, and growing global influence. Viewers should prepare for more conversations like this throughout 2025 as financial landscapes evolve dramatically. In the coming days, viewers can expect to see increased chatter across financial circles regarding Vietnam's move. Analysts will debate the timing, traders will examine the implications for regional markets, and economists will assess the long-term ripple effects. Governments and central banks across Asia may discuss whether further adjustments are needed to maintain competitive balance in trade. Corporations operating supply chains through Vietnam may publicly comment on how the new currency valuation affects production costs and output strategies. Meanwhile, individual currency holders and investors will wait for public confirmation to understand how this shift impacts them personally. Tonight's event is only the beginning of a much larger narrative that will unfold throughout 2025. Every major currency adjustment generates weeks, months, or even years of financial discussion, and this revaluation will likely be no different. As we continue monitoring the situation, it is important for viewers to stay grounded in factual developments rather than speculation. The strongest indicator of authenticity remains the synchronized updates appearing on internal banking systems across multiple regions. These systems form the backbone of global financial communication and do not display unapproved or speculative numbers. Their synchronized behavior is the clearest signal that this event is both real and currently in progress. Viewers should resist misinformation circulating online and focus primarily on confirmed system behaviors, bank-issued notices, and official updates once released. Over the next 24 to 48 hours, the world may witness the full public rollout of the Vietnamese dong's new valuation. If the internal rate visible tonight becomes the public rate soon, it will represent one of the most significant monetary adjustments of the decade. In closing, tonight's development marks a historic moment for Vietnam and a major event for global finance. The Vietnamese dong's new valuation, quietly appearing across multiple banking systems around the world, signals the beginning of a financial transition that has been anticipated by analysts for years. This change reflects Vietnam's rising economic power, its strengthened global position, and its successful efforts to modernize its financial infrastructure. As the activation continues behind the scenes and prepares for public release, the world is watching closely. This moment is not only about Vietnam's currency, It is about the rebalancing of global financial power, the rise of emerging economies, and the reshaping of international trade dynamics. Viewers should stay attentive to updates, remain patient during the synchronization process, and prepare for one of the most impactful currency stories of 2025 to unfold in real time.